Good morning, afternoon, and welcome. Today we are discussing Ireland's strategic path on AI governance, guided by the Joint Committee on Artificial Intelligence's first interim report, published in December 2025. AI is a tool we can shape, and the aim is to strike the right balance where innovation and regulation coexist. In this episode, we will explore the industrialisation of AI in Europe and what that looks like in Ireland today. We will cover the key dates ahead, what enforcement means in practice, and the impact this shift will have on organisations and the public. Sit back and enjoy as we take a deep dive. Now, over to our two presenters.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wading into some seriously choppy waters. We are talking about the technology that everyone, and I do mean everyone, has an opinion on. Usually when we cover a topic, the experts sort of agree on the basics.
Okay.
But for this one, I want to start with a quote from Dr. Ciarán COA from Research Ireland, because it perfectly captures the mood in the room. He told the committee, there are those who believe AI is the best thing ever, and there are those who believe it is the end of mankind.
Talk about setting the stakes high, no pressure.
Right. There's absolutely no middle ground there. It is either utopia or the apocalypse. But here is the thing. Today, we aren't just speculating on sci-fi scenarios or, wondering if robots will take our jobs in 10 years. We are looking at something happening right now on the ground.
Yeah.
We're looking at how a nation, specifically Ireland, is trying to write the rules of the road for this technology while it is barreling down the highway at 100 miles an hour.
It is a fascinating case study because, historically, the law is slow, technology is fast, and right now, in early 2026, those two timelines are just crashing into each other.
So to get a handle on this collision, we have pulled two major documents from the stack. First, we have the first interim report from the Irish Joint Committee on Artificial Intelligence. This dropped back in December 2025.
Okay.
And second, we have a strategic memo titled The Irish and European Roadmap for AI Governance.
And just to give everyone a sense of the weight of this, the report isn't just some bureaucrats brainstorming over coffee. This was 7 intense meetings, witness testimonies from global experts, civil rights groups, tech giants. They are scrambling because there's a massive deadline coming up.
In August 2026.
Exactly.
We are definitely going to get to that deadline because documents make it sound like a cliff edge. But the mission for this deep dive is to unpack a specific tension. You have Ireland attempting to balance sovereignty and trust against the sheer industrial might of the European Union. And in the middle of that, they came up with 85 specific recommendations.
Okay.
We were talking about protecting kids, the disabled, the environment, basically trying to tame the Wild West of algorithms.
It is a huge task. And honestly, looking at the roadmap, it feels a bit like David and Goliath, or maybe David trying to negotiate with Goliath while Goliath is building a factory.
Let's start there. The landscape. You have Brussels on one side and Dublin on the other. How does this roadmap describe that dynamic? Because usually we think of the EU and Ireland as being on the same page.
They are on the same book, but maybe reading different chapters.
Yeah.
The roadmap describes the EU's approach as the muscle.
The muscle. Okay.
Well, think about it. The EU is looking at the US with Silicon Valley and China with its state-backed tech, and they are terrified of falling behind. So they are taking an industrial strategic view. They have mobilized Invest AI.
Right.
We are talking about targeting up to $200 billion in investment.
That is a staggering amount of money.
It is. They are building AI gigafactories and massive compute infrastructure. The goal is strategic autonomy. Basically, if the world goes sideways, Europe doesn't want to be reliant on servers in California or Shenzhen to keep its economy running.
So the EU is building the engine. They are writing the big checks.
Yeah.
But they are also the ones writing the AI Act, right? That's the law of the land.
Correct. The EU AI Act is the world's first comprehensive legal framework. And you have to understand the risk-based model they are using because everything flows from this. They don't just regulate AI as a whole.
Right. They put it in buckets.
4 buckets. First, unacceptable risk. These are banned outright. Things like social scoring systems that governments use to track citizen behavior or, subliminal manipulation techniques.
Okay, so no minority report stuff. That's off the table.
Then you have high risk. This is the big category. Systems used in healthcare, law enforcement, education, critical infrastructure. These are allowed, but the rules are incredibly strict. You need logs, human oversight, accuracy testing. Then you have limited risk, like chatbots, where you just need to know you're talking to a machine, and minimal risk, like spam filters.
Okay, so that's the EU framework. They're the muscle, building the factories and setting the baseline rules. So where does Ireland fit in? If the EU is the muscle, what is Ireland? The brain.
The report actually positions Ireland as the conscience.
The conscience. That sounds noble, but also kind of difficult to enforce.
It is a fascinating distinction. While the EU is focused on industrial sovereignty, building the stuff, Ireland is focusing on governance sovereignty. The Joint Committee is very clear. They want to focus on the guardrails.
Public trust.
Public trust, accountability, protecting rights.
But hold on, Ireland is the European HQ for almost every major tech company. Google, Meta, Microsoft, they're all in Dublin. Doesn't that make things awkward?
Uh-huh.
I mean, if Ireland tries to be the conscience, aren't they biting the hand that feeds them?
That is the tension. There's a very specific fear mentioned in the report that because Ireland hosts these giants, there might be pressure to water things down, to be business-friendly.
Of course.
But the committee takes a hard line here. They emphasize that Ireland should treat the EU AI Act as a minimum baseline, not a maximum standard.
So they are explicitly saying we can go harder than Brussels.
Yes. The phrase they use is that we must not shy away or dilute the regulations. They are terrified of repeating the early days of data privacy where Ireland was seen as a bottleneck for enforcement. They want to prove that conscience isn't just a slogan.
Which brings us to the segment I've been waiting for, the innovation versus regulation debate.
Yeah.
You hear this at every dinner party. Oh, Europe is regulating itself into irrelevance. If you put too many rules on AI, the startups will just move to Texas or Singapore.
It is the standard argument, don't kill the golden goose. But what jumped out at me in this report is that the committee and the experts they spoke to called this a false dichotomy.
A false dichotomy? I don't know, it feels pretty real. If I have to fill out 50 forms to launch an app in Dublin, but 0 forms in Austin, I'm going to Austin.
You might think that, but look at the evidence they cited from Research Ireland regarding GDPR. Think back to 2018. When GDPR came out, the narrative was exactly the same. The internet in Europe is over, business will flee.
And I remember the panic. Every inbox was full of, please stay subscribed emails.
But did the companies leave? No. In fact, something else happened. They raised their standards globally. The report makes this great point. No company wants to build a ChatGPT for Europe and a different ChatGPT for the rest of the world.
Because maintaining 2 separate code bases, 2 separate brains, would be a nightmare.
It's too expensive. So the high standards in Europe often become the global standard. It's called the Brussels effect.
Right.
And more than that, the report argues that the Wild West is actually bad for long-term business. If you are an investor, do you want to pour money into a company that might get sued into oblivion next year because there were no rules?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Investors hate uncertainty more than they hate rules.
Exactly. Innovators want guardrails. They want to know where the edge of the cliff is so they can drive fast without falling off. Regulation provides that certainty.
Okay, so the argument is that smart regulation is actually a competitive advantage. But for that to work, you need the regulators to actually be ready.
Yes.
And that brings us back to the clock, August 2026. Why is this specific date haunting the committee?
That is the milestone for full enforcement. That's when the obligations for high-risk AI systems go live under the EU Act. It's also when national enforcement bodies have to be operational.
So it's not just a nice-to-have deadline, it's the law.
It's the law.
Yep.
And the committee is recommending that Ireland needs its national AI office up and running by that date. But here is where it gets spicy.
Uh-oh.
There is a lot of debate about where this office should sit.
Right now, the plan is to put it under the Department of Enterprise.
Right.
Which sounds logical. It's a tech industry thing.
Yeah.
It sounds logical until you think about the incentives. The ICCL, the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, waved a massive red flag here. The Department of Enterprise has a mandate to promote business. Their job is to get companies to come to Ireland and grow.
I see the problem. If the same department is responsible for policing those companies.
It's a classic conflict of interest. You can't be the cheerleader and the referee at the same time. The committee is arguing that the AI office needs independence. If Google or OpenAI breaks the rules, the AI office needs to be able to slap them with a fine without worrying that it's going to hurt the Department of Enterprise's quarterly growth targets.
That seems critical. If the referee is wearing one team's jersey, nobody trusts the game.
Exactly.
And alongside this office, by August 2026, they also want to establish a sandbox. Now I hear sandbox, and I think of toddlers and plastic shovels.
It's a little more high-tech than that. A regulatory sandbox is a concept gaining a lot of traction. Think of it like a crash test facility for cars.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Before you put a car on the highway, you crash it into a wall in a controlled environment to see if the airbags work. A regulatory sandbox allows companies to develop and test their AI products under the supervision of the regulators before they release them to the public.
I see.
They can spot the biases, the safety flaws, and the legal issues in a safe zone.
So instead of the Silicon Valley motto, move fast and break things, it's test it here so you don't break society.
Precisely. And speaking of breaking society, let's pivot to the human side of this. The report spends a huge amount of time on protecting the vulnerable. And the sections on children were, honestly, they're tough to read.
Yeah, this is where the abstract policy stuff becomes very real. The committee emphasized that young people are the group most impacted by this technology, and they came out swinging against recommender systems.
This is potentially the most explosive recommendation in the entire report for the tech industry. Recommender systems are the algorithms that decide what video you see next on TikTok or what post shows up in your Instagram feed.
They're the engine,
They are the engine of social media.
and the committee wants to turn them off.
Switched off by default. For everyone initially, but specifically, they want a hard ban on social media companies turning on these recommender algorithms for accounts used by children.
Wow. So if I'm a kid in 2027 and I log on to an app, I just see what things my friends posted chronologically.
Just the people you follow, no For You page feeding you endless content.
That destroys the engagement model of these companies. Why such a hard line?
Because the testimony they heard was damning. They looked at the addictive design features. They looked at the mental health crisis among teens. The report references tragic cases where families are suing AI companies after children took their own lives.
Oh, wow.
The argument is that the algorithm doesn't care about your well-being. It maximizes engagement. And often, the best way to keep a depressed teen scrolling is to feed them content that validates that depression.
Eating disorders, self-harm. The algorithm pushes it because it gets a reaction.
Correct. And the committee's position is summarized as safety by design. It shouldn't be up to a 13-year-old or their parents to navigate a maze of privacy settings to be safe. The product must be safe out of the box.
That's a massive shift in liability. But it's not just kids they're worried about. They also did a deep dive into inclusion and the disability gap. And this part really opened my eyes to how neutral AI actually isn't.
Nothing about us without us. That was the core message from the Disabled Persons Organizations Network. We tend to think of AI as math, and we think math is objective. But AI is trained on human data. And human history is full of bias.
The report had a specific example about the Gemma model from Google, right?
This was striking. The DPO network highlighted that the Gemma model, in certain tests, downplayed women's physical and mental issues compared to men in case notes.
So if a man says, "I'm in pain," the AI takes it seriously. If a woman says, "I'm in pain," the AI minimizes it.
It often categorized it as psychosomatic or stress-related. Now, that's bad enough if it's a chatbot, but imagine if that model is being used to triage patients in an ER or to approve insurance claims. That bias becomes a health risk.
That's terrifying. It's medical negligence encoded in software.
And then there is the privacy angle for the visually impaired. This was something I hadn't considered. A lot of visually impaired people use text-to-speech tools to read documents. It's a lifeline for independence.
Sure, you get a letter in the mail, you scan it, the phone reads it to you.
But if that letter is a bank statement or a medical result or a legal summons, and you feed it into a cloud-based AI to have it read aloud, where does that data go? Is it being used to train the model?
You're basically forced to hand over your most private secrets just to access them.
Which is why the committee is recommending that offline tools must be available. And the bigger solution they propose is co-design. Disabled people need to be in the room when the software is built, not just brought in to beta test it when it's basically finished.
It's too late.
It's too late to change the core architecture.
It seems so obvious, yet it rarely happens. And then on the other end of the age spectrum, the report highlighted the digital divide for older people. 41% of people over 75 in Ireland have never used the internet.
Not once.
Not once.
That statistic is staggering, 41%. As government services move to digital first, you are effectively locking nearly half of your elderly population out of society.
Yeah.
The committee was very firm on this. AI must complement human contact, not replace it. They want human support options to remain a legal requirement for public services.
So you can't just have a chatbot. You have to be able to press 0 and talk to a human being.
Yes, you cannot automate away the citizen's right to be heard.
I think everyone listening, regardless of age, is nodding along with that one. Now, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Or maybe, given the climate context, the polar bear in the room. Energy.
This is the sleeping giant of the AI conversation. We focus so much on the software, we forget the hardware. The committee issued a really stark warning. Dr. Sayori testified that if growth continues at the current exponential rate, AI could consume more electricity than the planet generated.
Wait, hold on. More electricity than the planet generated? That sounds like hyperbole.
It's a projection based on unchecked growth, obviously, but even if it's half true, we have a problem. Data centers are incredibly energy hungry, and Ireland is a global hub for these data centers.
We're already seeing pressure on the national grid.
Exactly. So we have a conflict. We want the tech jobs. We want the AI gigafactories. But we also have legally binding climate targets. How do we square that circle?
Right.
The committee proposes an energy council, a group of full-time paid experts to manage this specific intersection. They're basically saying we cannot let data centers crash the grid or blow our carbon budget just to train the next version of a chatbot.
It's a reality check. The cloud isn't a cloud. It's a warehouse full of hot servers eating electricity and drinking water for cooling.
And alongside energy transparency, they want transparency in the public sector, too. This is the public register idea.
This one feels very Big Brother in reverse.
Yeah.
Watching the watchers.
Exactly. The recommendation is for a mandatory, publicly accessible central register of all algorithmic systems used by the government.
Why does that matter to the average listener?
Because if the government uses AI to decide if you get a university grant or a visa or housing aid, or if you get audited for tax, you have a right to know.
Yeah.
You have a right to know who built it, how it works, and if it has been tested for bias.
Transparency is the first step toward accountability. If you don't know a machine made the decision, you can't challenge it.
That is the core theme of this entire report: sovereignty, trust, accountability.
So we've covered the EU muscle, the Irish conscience, the ban on recommender systems for kids, the bias in medical AI,
Right.
and the energy crisis.
It's a lot.
It feels like a massive wish list.
It is a lot, but the report ends with a really important nod to the people. They recommend a citizens' assembly on artificial intelligence.
I love that, because usually these decisions are made in boardrooms in San Francisco or committee rooms in Brussels.
Right, and this technology shouldn't just happen to people. They should have a say in it.
So, bringing this deep dive to a close,
Right.
what is the one thing sticking with you?
It comes back to the precautionary principle mentioned in the report. Just because something can be done with AI doesn't mean it should be. It is a tool, not a master. We get to decide how to use it.
We get to decide. That's a hopeful note. But I want to leave our listeners with a thought to chew on. We talk about sovereignty all the time. Usually we think of that as borders, armies, flags. But in 2026, listening to this, it feels like true sovereignty is the ability to decide how decisions are made about our lives. Are they made by humans with empathy and context, or by black box algorithms optimizing for efficiency and engagement?
That is the defining question of our decade.
And the real test is, can a small nation like Ireland actually enforce this vision against global tech giants? Or is this report just a noble wish list standing in front of a tidal wave?
We'll find out in August 2026.
We certainly will. Thanks for diving in with us.
Thank you.
See you next time.